Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast, presented by Zwift, the online cycling platform that makes training fun. Here with the Giro d'Italia Stage 2, the time trial that was originally going to be a prologue back in 2020, the 9K TT around Budapest, but not a prologue because this is the second stage. Van der Poel going into the stage in the pink jersey, I think 10 to 14 seconds ahead of many of the GC riders and more than 14 ahead of some others with the time split yesterday in that uphill sprint. The big contenders for the stage, him, probably odds on to keep Maglia Rosa, but Dumoulin's here, Vos, Sobrero, Almeida, Affini did well in the TT last year. Simon Yates was good in the TT at Paris-Nice, but no Van Aert, no Kung, none of those riders as well. But before we get into the results, we had a pretty exciting day, Benji. We were in the car, went in the van behind Gijs Leemreizer, if that's how you say his name right, in the Jumbo-Visma team van.
Yes, sir, and it was quite an experience. Like, there's a lot of things that you can say about being in the car behind a time trialing rider in a time trial that is as technical as the parkour that is today. And I think the main thing I want to say is we've had a great driver, Eddie Bouwmans, which is like an ex-white jersey winner at the Tour de France. So that's actually crazy to think about. Won the Tour de Hungary back in the days, and he's now driving us around in that time trial behind Gijs Leemreizer. And the one thing that stands out to me personally is the fact that that car went a lot faster than I, in my mind, anticipated. It was like a rally through the corners.
Yeah, and he's trying to stay close to him. There's a really technical section in this parkour, by the way, the 9K TT. It looks flat, but there's slow points. It's through the city of Budapest. They go under an overpass. There's a very narrow chicane, which, as Benji was saying, Eddie had to navigate. That was very, very tricky. I think Tobias Bayer indeed crashed there. And then there's the 1,400-meter 5% climb to Fisherman's Bastion above it in Budapest, which had a bit of pave, not decisive, but it's an irregular climb. There's a really steep sort of pinch at the bottom, two of them, and then it levels off on asphalt once again. And before we get into the results, a word on our show partner, Zwift, who've sponsored the pod all year round, and also where Mathieu van der Poel, who was in the Maglia Rosa today, spent his time in January building up before his tilt at Milano Sanremo and the Classics. If you want to check out Zwift, you can go to Zwift.com for a free 7-day trial through the link down below. It has real-world and fantasy locations to ride in, as well as workouts, training plans, and a packed calendar of group rides and races, and a meetup functionality, which Benji and I have been putting to great use ourselves before the Giro d'Italia. But the results in this TT, Yates takes it. Felipe Yates, on Bike Exchange. Their setup looks really good. He did a really good TT at Paris-Nice, as I said. Beats Van der Poel, 46.5 average K an hour by 3 seconds. Dumoulin third, Sobrero fourth, who did pretty well in a TT in Giro d'Italia last year, I think, 13 seconds back. Then Tullett, very punchy Ineos rider. Vos, Kelderman, Leonard Kemner, former under-23 time trial champion, I think. Schmidt and Arensman 10th. Almeida 18th. There's no way, Benji, I thought Almeida would finish outside the top 10. I don't know what's going on there. Was he not lying about I only won a top 5 from this race?
Oh, it must be disappointing for the camp of UAE looking at this time and saying to themselves, well, okay, what happened to Almeida here? What was the issue here? What's the reason that he's not in that top 10? Because like you say, he must be in that top 10 100% in any situation here, unless he has bad luck somewhere, which I don't think he had. Now, looking at the other riders, like you're talking about Simon Yates winning this, I was expecting somewhat of at least a top 10, top 5 perhaps, if he had a day like that Paris-Nice. But a victory is way above any of my expectations. I thought Van der Poel would clean this up, and he didn't. He got second on those 3 seconds, and the technical part did bring an advantage for someone like Van der Poel with an acceleration. Are we underestimating the acceleration of Simon Yates?
Maybe Van der Poel spent a lot in the initial flat section. He's probably trains less on his TT bike than Simon Yates. I think Simon Yates' setup and equipment is better than Van der Poel's. Van der Poel's is also wearing the organizer's jersey, which I think people saw on the recon. He had it didn't fit him that well. They rarely do. So that's a disadvantage. But when at T1, which is actually at the base of the climb, helpfully, Yates was only not even a full second ahead of Van der Poel. So I thought Van der Poel was going to win because in the Paris TT, he actually did a really good time to the intermediate and then faded in the second half. But he put another 1.5 seconds into Van der Poel on that climb, which, crazy from Simon Yates. He's in great shape. Whether he can carry it for 3 weeks, I don't know. He has had issues with that. And also the time gaps here it's not like the Tour de France where 20 seconds is insurmountable or 30 seconds. It's a first blow. He's looking good. Interesting in this TT is from looking at the T1 to the finish splits, Rick Zabel did the climb the fastest, Ankhorn second fastest. They both did the Zabel did the way out there like 42 k's an hour average. Is there KOM points? Is Zabel taking the KOM? That must be it, right?
Actually, I don't know, but that could give the reason to why these two riders decided to go all out on the final climb alone, because the initial part that they brought up was, one of the worst times on the initial part, the run in towards that climb, which is expected when you then hammer the last spot up that climb. And it's pretty cool to see that they both had a little sprint. Diego Rosa of Eolo also tried it, so there must be something in there when it comes to the KOM being there for the final climb, quite certainly. But when we mention those times, I also want to mention Carapaz. And when we look at Richard Carapaz, he was 9th at T1. I was like, oh, this is a good time. Carapaz, he's looking good. And then he started the climb, and you started saying it first, and he didn't look that great. He didn't look like he was going that fast. And what time did he get on the last time? Was he 97th of everybody in like the last climb itself?
I think about 95th, which is, I was watching, I was like, I think he's going, he's going slower than Ozzo, the writer of LanterneRouge.com.au, on the climb. Like, he's going slower. And 95th on that, and that's ahead of around the same time as slower than Krieger, slower than Alessandro Tonelli or Reda Hollenstein. So he blew up Carapaz, it seems like. He didn't do a disastrous TT if I filter. They're not losing huge amounts of seconds here. But, Landa lost. He came 30th on 12:23, 30 seconds, 33 seconds behind Yates. Not the worst in the world. Carapaz about not even 18. I'm trying to do quick maths. 28 seconds, not even 30 seconds back. So not the best TT. For Ineos, Tullet was really good. Sivakov and Port were all around just a little bit ahead of Carapaz, but Port they all did differently, it seems, Benji. Sivakov a bit quicker out, 14th to T1, then finished about 15th, a bit slower on the climb. Port a bit slower out, and then 7th on the climb, and then Carapaz 9th on the way out, and 97th. So different strokes for different folks, or maybe Carapaz just blew up. I don't know. Any other notable things to pull out of this TT, Benji? Kelderman looking good. I think Sobrero goes into the white jersey, and I just checked Zabel does take KOM, but MVDP in pink. How long do you reckon he keeps it for? Do you reckon actually, this one I want to ask, does he go for the sprint tomorrow or Mareshko? Because he's safe in pink. He doesn't need the bonus.
Ooh, I think, why is Mareshko here if he can't go for the sprint? That's my issue here.
Exactly.
And that's the reason that I'd say Mareshko would sprint, but I want to see Van der Poel sprint. Like, I want to see him in the bunch sprint, and perhaps it's unlikely that he'll do it. Perhaps he won't go for Ciclamino unless he actually goes for it. But I don't know. I'm gonna go with yes because I want to see him do that sprint, and solely for that reason alone. But I will mention something else about the Stam Trial. We also went to see some of the recon, and we noticed that in the way back, the riders start from the starting line, they do the recon, and in the way back, they had to go from the finish line back to the start through active traffic in Budapest. Like, how insane is that? I can't get over that. Literally, I saw an Androni drone hopper rider almost get hit by a taxi on the way back. It's crazy.
Well, and after the actual TT itself, so like Patrick Gamper, we saw Bora Hansgrohe, they took his TT bike off him and handed him a road bike on the way back so he could ride easy, whereas the Trek guys rode back in traffic, so that was kind of interesting. I mean, short ride. It's not like it's a long ride for the riders. Other ones I want to pick out, Schjelmers a little bit less than I thought on 29 seconds and 21st. Hindley and Lander, as I said, kind of where they should be. Magnus Cort. Now, I don't know if he had a mechanical or something. He finished 40 seconds back behind Lascano, Brandler, Conti in a TT, which should pretty much suit him. He did well in a Vuelta TT. Like, do you have any insight on that, Benji, or is he coming into the race underprepared?
He kind of said he was going to be somewhat underprepared going into this race, but next to him, I've also got the fact that Miguel Angel Lopez, lost 44 seconds as well. So for Lopez, we know he's an inconsistent TT rider. We know that sometimes he's got great TTs, but sometimes he's got terrible TTs. But 44 seconds on a parkour that is this short with a punchy finish at the end, that's just bad.
Yeah, that's no good. And, I tried to tell him yesterday that I think he'll win on Blockhouse, and yeah, maybe he will. Otherwise, Attila Valter lost a fair bit of time, and I'm hoping he's out of the white jersey picture, I think, for the rest of the race, let alone Maglia Rosa. I think he needs to lose time tomorrow in advance of Balaton Furet. No, in advance of Etna, rather, when they go down to Sicily. But before we talk about tomorrow's stage and any other things out of this TT, mentioned that the LRCP Giro coverage is supported by GCN Plus. You'll have heard Robbie McEwen on comms today. He is covering the race, I think now in person over in the UK. You can watch all 3,410 kilometers live and ad-free on GCN Plus, who have live rights worldwide, excluding New Zealand. Catch up when it suits you with full stage replays and on-demand highlights, all available on any screen, so you can watch anytime, anywhere. All LRCP listeners from the US, UK, Australia, Canada, or Germany can get 25% off an annual GCN subscription with the quantity of races throughout the year is insane by heading to gcn.eu/LRCP, which is in the description down below. Thanks to GCN Plus for supporting the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast. But before we get on to the other TT, just pulling out anything else, Benji, Biniam, 42 seconds back. We didn't expect anything too spectacular. What about Dumoulin, Benji? Does this make you... He's third here. It's a good result. There's no shame in being beaten by Yates, who went quicker than Van der Poel. Does this make you believe he's a serious GC guy for a top 5 at this race, or what do you need to see? Are you waiting for Etna to really know how he's going to go?
I don't consider him a serious GC rider yet. I need to see more confirmation for that. He had a good time trial, or decent time trial at least, in UAE before he collapsed on that climb. So we need to see more before we can actually decide, okay, Dumoulin's back, he can compete for GC. That's not the case at the moment. They've also got Vos there, so it's going to be a two-rider camp there to fight for GC, depending on who can hang on Etna, Blockhouse, and so forth in the future. But for now, I'm still on the pending side. I don't think this proves too much outside of the fact that he's at least got basic form, which is pretty important to at least go into this race, I'd say.
So all going well. I mean, Bike Exchange, if I was them now, with Yates, the virtual Maglia Rosa leader, with Van der Poel not a GC guy, Yates a little bit of a nice buffer ahead of, say, Dumoulin 5 seconds, Kelderman 13 seconds. Didn't he wear the jersey for like 2 weeks in the 2018 Giro, Simon Yates, before Froome attacked him in the third week? If I was them, I'd be trying to give away the jersey and let the breakaway win on Etna, rather than carrying that burden all the way to Blockhouse and then deeper into the race. Because this race is going to be won or lost in the third week. It's nice to have these little salvos here. Maybe they want the pink jersey for the sponsors after Etna, but playing the long game, if I was them, I'd probably let the break win, even though Yates, he could win that stage, and I think he could probably win on Blockhouse or lose 2 minutes, like Adam Yates did. Adam Yates, I think, lost 4 minutes on Blockhouse. But tomorrow's stage, Benji, MVDP's got an 11-second buffer. He'll be keeping that Maglia Rosa, even if he doesn't sprint tomorrow, going into the Sicilian stages. Who do you like for it? It's a pure sprint stage. Ewan's continued this race, I think. We saw Jan Tratnik doing the TT one-handed today. It's got like a 3% kicker, 13 Ks from the finish at 1,600 meters to go. That shouldn't concern anybody. Who do you like for it? Because I think I said Ewan, now he's crashed. I got to revise or think about who I like for this stage.
I went for Mark Cavendish, and I'll stay with it. I think Mirko is going to play a godlike lead-out mode for him, and I think that's going to matter on the stage of tomorrow. The Quick-Step team seems pretty all right so far in this time trial and the stage before, and I think that they're going to pull it off, and they're going to set up a proper lead-out for Cavendish, and if he's going to make it or not depends on his own sprint speed then, compared to the others, and dependent on the positioning of Ewan and whether he's completely back, because we don't know if he's going to be completely okay after that crash. Like we spoke with the press officer of Lotto when he said that it was relatively okay, but yeah, that's a press officer of Lotto, so I'm not sure if it's like 100% accurate in that sense. But I think that yeah, my pick is Cavendish for that sprint.
I'm going to go with Arno Demar. Ewan's got no de Boistes. There's Schwarzman, Zelig, I think, and Kluger. So the German lead out. But yeah, the crash yesterday might have knocked him a little bit. We've got Biniam, but in a pure hectic bunch sprint, I knock him down a little bit. I think the climb yesterday, that suited him, thinning it out a bit more. MVDP and Mareshko, don't like it. I don't know which one they're going for. And so Demar's got the big train. They didn't bring, like, Volta literally has no support. It's like a 6-man old school train of Scottson, Sinkeldam, Ludvigsen, Conor Volovos, Guarnieri, and Clement Davy. So he's got to perform. And tomorrow's the first big sprint stage. There's Nizzolo here who looked, nippy at the first intermediate, but what does that really mean? I think you're right that Cavs are, probably first or second favourite with Ewan, probably first favourite now. But yeah, any other thoughts on the first sprint tomorrow?
Not necessarily on the sprint itself, but I do want to say that we've been inside this race for the last 2 days, and I've really enjoyed it. And I want to say thank you to the people that we met that also listened to the podcast and so forth. It was a great experience meeting you guys, and just in general, was a fun experience for us as well to be in this race and so forth. So awesome stuff.
Yeah, that's been really nice. Our first Grand Tour or race that we've gone to for the podcast, people coming up and saying hello is fantastic. And seeing some of the riders as well. I ran into Leonard Kamner, podcast favourite, today, and managed to give him the unofficial 1-of-1 Wilco Kelderman fan club T-shirt. And Wilco's doing well. So are those two things connected? Leonard and Wilco, and me being around them, I don't know. Probably it is connected if my logic tells me correctly. And yeah, being in the behind Gijs Lamreiser in the Jumbo van or car today, it was cool. It was crazy just how narrow some of the sections are, and you forget like how skillful those guys have to be to drive behind, particularly in a van. And also the differences between teams. You walk around the bus, you can see it. Everyone can see it. Like Jumbo have all their riders warming up in shade. It was hot today in Budapest, like 20, 22 degrees. I'm probably a little bit sun-kissed. And other teams have got their riders literally doing TT warm-up in direct sunlight. And others have got no fans but no direct sunlight. And so it makes a difference. And some teams have got it all dialed in and some don't. And whether that's a lot of the time, it might be budget as well. And it's like, yeah, of course we would love to have ice vests for every guy and a big overhanging thing and an enclosure and an extra bus and all this, but some teams can't afford it. Some can and maybe don't go that extra mile. But yeah, a lot of pressure on Demar tomorrow. Less pressure on Ewan, but he might pull it off. And it's a sprint stage that shouldn't really change the Maglia Rosa. Yeah, any last thoughts on today's stage, Benji, and the GC? Have your thoughts on GC changed at all since our preview? We should probably let people know if they have.
I don't think they have necessarily. I think that my Almeida pick is looking a bit meh after this time trial. But hey, he's going to come back. Week 3 is where he's going to strike back. And it's only been like one time trial with a meh result. So it's not like he was like actually like completely terrible. So I keep my beliefs. I keep my beliefs in Almeida. And when it comes to my Scalmore's a top 10 prediction, his TT wasn't great. Like, it looks like every single person I predicted to do well in GC decided to not do a good time trial today. So I guess they're out for me. They're just out for me. So that's unfortunate, but they're all gonna come back eventually.
And yeah, it's Almeida just sometimes he blows hot and cold. I was more concerned by yesterday. Like, damn, you're getting gapped on that finish, but then to me, it looked like the Formula lead out for Ulysses kind of caught him in a bad spot when I was watching that again. But other news was, if you hadn't seen, is some funny clips going around, and it was after or before we started recording, or after rather, Van der Poel nearly took his eye out with a champagne cork from the stand, and it looked like it actually hurt him. So I'm sure people have seen that doing the rounds on social media. But that's all from us today. Short, punchy TT. It was lovely spectating, beautiful scenes here in Budapest. We enjoyed it. And MVDP and Maglia Rosa, the organisers have to be happy. And Simon Yates looking good with great legs early doors. Thanks to Zwift for being the show partner of LRCP. And we'll see you with the sprint recap tomorrow. Ciao.